Yes, thank you very much. So yeah, hi. If I say that a app or website makes me sick, I mean it literally. If I encounter certain types of movement on a website or an app, I might feel disoriented, I might feel nauseous. And that's, to be honest, it's not fun. And now that I mentioned it, you might be wondering that, hey, okay, like the digital world, it's full of animations, it's full of motion. How do I survive? Well, there is actually this setting, which is called reduced motion or animations off. And that's on operating system level. So I can turn animations off or reduce motion from that setting on the operating systems level. And if the apps or websites respect that setting, then I'm just fine. Like I don't encounter those kinds of movements or animations. And so yeah, today I am talking about just that. And I will be telling you more about how to respect and how to respect that setting on Android, and also when you actually should check if that setting is enabled. So that's the kind of the second part of this talk. But first, I will be talking more about, why do I feel nauseous, or like what causes these symptoms and other problems that might, animations might cause. So that's basically what we are going to talk about today. But before diving into the actual topic, a couple of words about myself. So I already mentioned that my name is Eeva-Jonna, or Eevis, and I'm accessibility specialist and Android developer. I work at Aura. I'm based in Finland, and I actually have extensive background in web development. So I switched to Android development last year, basically. But before that, I've been working as a web developer. And I am actually certified professional in web accessibility. That's a certification from organization called International Association of Accessibility Professionals. And I'm also Women Tech Makers Ambassador. And I love to share what I've learned. So I basically write a blog, and I speak. I'm here today. And I just want to mention that I'm also a disabled person, which you might have guessed from the intro. And when I'm not doing something, I would say work-related, I explore the beautiful, beautiful Finnish nature, either by foot or by kayak. And this picture here that you can see, it's from last year's trip. It was Easter, I think, and we were kayaking in the archipelago here in Finland and exploring the archipelago. That's really beautiful, especially in the springtime. And in the picture, there is basically the nose of my kayak, which is orange, and the sea is almost still. There are blue skies with a little bit of clouds, and there is my friend kayaking in front of me. And there is one bigger islet on the left side of the image, and on the further on the sea, there are some smaller islets. So that's like something. If you ever visit Finland, I recommend trying kayaking here. So yeah, that's about me. And as mentioned, today we are going to talk about animations and accessibility. So the first talk will be about, animations and accessibility, so how they are related and what kind of accessibility issues there might be with animations. And the second part will be about the technical implementation on Android. So yeah, when I talk about accessibility, I talk about digital accessibility. So in Finnish, there are actually two words for accessibility, or like translations for the word accessibility. It's either saavutettavuus and esteettömyys. So really long words, the Finnish style. But the first one, saavutettavuus, it means digital accessibility, and esteettömyys, it means physical accessibility. And I just want to kind of like emphasize that we are talking about digital accessibility here, not physical accessibility, which would be something about the physical devices, for example, in the case of Android. So yeah, that's good thing to remember. And also, like, when I talk about accessibility, basically what I mean is that anyone, despite having disabilities or impairments, can use a digital service, and in this case, an Android app. So that's kind of simple definition. So if they are using the app with assistive technologies such as screen readers or switch control or switch devices, voice control, or other assistive technologies, they still can use it. Or if they are not, or I could actually say we are not using any like real assistive technology or like concrete assistive technology, still we can use the app. So that's basically like what accessibility means when I'm talking about it today. And well, as I mentioned in the intro, animations, they are everywhere. Like in the digital world, it's hard to kind of not to see some sort of animations somewhere. We have GIFs, we have like these parallax scrolling effects that I hate so much, but I'm gonna talk about that a bit more later. And other like in different kinds of animations for interactions and like, well, for many things. So they are everywhere. So it's good to talk about the accessibility aspects of animations. So let's first talk about the problem with animations, so the accessibility problem. I could say that there are two problems when it comes to animations and accessibility. The first one is that animations can trigger different kinds of symptoms. As I mentioned, nausea, dizziness, feeling disoriented, migraines, seizures, and many other symptoms. So that's one thing that animations might cause. But animations can also be distracting. I don't know about you, but if I'm trying to read something and there is movement near to content, it's really hard to concentrate because my eyes are just drawn to the movement and like I really can't read the content. So that's also a problem with animations. And there are different kind of, or actually I want to mention two causes for these two problems. There might be others as well, but I wanted to kind of like take the two clear ones. If, well, maybe it's a good word for this. So the first one is vestibular disorders. And that's an umbrella term for different kinds of disorders or like, there is a really good word for this in English, but I don't remember it now. I might come back to it later. But like, you know, different conditions and stuff that which might be either permanent or just like temporary ones. And vestibular system, that's the system in your ear that affects balance, for example. I'm not really good with anatomy or like explaining how things work, but just remember that it's the thing in your ear that affects balance. And these disorders usually affect that system. And I have like a list of some possible disorders, and I try to get them right, but like these words are really hard for like non-native English speaker, though I think they might be even for native English speaker. So for example, benign paroxysmal positional vertigo. Yes, I got it right for the first time. That's something that I've had, and I've tried to explain about it, and I've tried to say that word like multiple times, so that's why I'm so happy that I got it right. Then vestibular migraine, labyrinthitis, or vestibular neuritis, Meniere's disease. Then there are like age-related things, dizziness, imbalance, for example. Then head injuries might cause vestibular damage, and then also other conditions and disorders fall under this criteria. I'm not gonna try to tell about them all, but these are just examples. And what causes these vestibular disorders? Well, there are multiple different causes or possible causes, like traumatic brain injuries might cause some of these, ear infections, migraine, strokes, or the reason might be just unknown. Like sometimes, for example, that I'm going to try it again. Benign paroxysmal positional vertigo that might happen out of nowhere without no apparent cause. That's what happened to me, so I know. So vestibular disorders, they are one type of, or one possible cause for these problems. The other I want to mention here is cognitive disabilities. Different cognitive disabilities might, there are some of the symptoms that I've mentioned might be caused by different types of cognitive disabilities. So as I mentioned, for example, traumatic brain injuries might cause vestibular disorders, but traumatic brain injuries basically usually they are also or might be behind cognitive disabilities as well. So these are in a way aligned in some cases. But then for the animations being distracting, especially for that, cognitive disabilities might cause problems with, for example, concentration. So that situation, what I described, that you are trying to read something and there is something happening near the content, it might be even worse for some people. For example, ADHD, autistic people, or the traumatic brain injury again, or other cognitive disabilities might also cause problems with that. So yeah. And because of people with different vestibular disorders, they are actually a pretty big group. I can't remember the exact number because I forgot to write it down, or estimations. I don't know the exact number, but estimations, but it was rather a big group. And also cognitive disabilities, as they are actually the biggest group of disabilities, there are lots of people who are actually affected by the problems of animations or the problems animations cause. So it's good thing to remember. All right. We've been talking about what causes the problem. Now let's talk a bit more about what actually makes movement or animations problematic. So Valhead has written a really good article in a list apart. It's from 2015 already, but I still recommend reading it because in this article, Designing Safer Web Animation for Motion Sensitivity, Valhead writes about, he was researching what types of movement are actually, or what makes movement problematic. And she found three things that make move or might make movement problematic, or characteristics of movement that might make it problematic. And I will be talking about these three, and then I have a fourth one from out of that list. So the first thing is the relative size of the movement. And this is actually about perceived space. So if the movement is perceived as taking lots of space, then it might trigger different kinds of symptoms. So even if the phone screen is usually rather small, like compared to, for example, a screen that I am using, at least for when I'm developing, so I have a huge screen, so my phone screen is really small compared to that one. And but if the movement takes like the whole space on the phone screen, it's actually like the perceived space that's large then, because it's like 100% of the space that's available. And it was just last week I was developing this one feature, and I got a bug report about some like weird things happening on a screen, and I actually got a couple of them from our internal testers, and I was like, okay, like I can't replicate this. I don't know what's happening here, until I realized that, okay, this is actually something that happens when the reduced motion setting is not on. So I just didn't see it because, like, for me it wasn't there because the setting was respected. But I needed to use my phone for a while without that setting on, and I haven't really done that since, well, many years ago, because I've had this setting on for a while now. And I was really surprised how much animations, how much movement on my screen there was, like from the operating system level, like all these transitions between like apps or like apps opening, and they actually take a lot of space. And I started feeling really like, well, bad, nauseous. And if the bug wasn't easy to fix, I would have needed to ask somebody else to fix it and or at least test it, because for me it was just becoming pretty impossible. So yeah, but I fixed it, and then I rested for a while, and then I was okay to continue. So that's good. So yeah, that's the first like thing. Then the second one is mismatched directions and speed. So with this, well, I mentioned that I will come back to parallax scrolling. That's actually kind of like its definition in a way, especially like on the websites. If you've ever seen parallax scrolling, so that's basically like where the part of the screen is moving in a different speed than you are scrolling. So for me, that's like a real no-no. And especially if I have that open, like a web page open on my screen, on a, like the browser is usually taking the whole screen, and I start scrolling on that kind of, or on a page that has parallax scrolling on, and it doesn't respect that setting. That's like, I know that I will need to take some time off from the screen. I need to rest before I can continue. So yeah, I hate parallax scrolling. Another example of these like mismatched directions and speed. I don't know if you remember this HTML element that was called, or is still called, marquee. It's deprecated in the current HTML spec, and but there was this one, and it worked so that if you put text inside this marquee element, the text scrolled horizontally. Yeah, horizontally. And for some reason, some websites have started to implement that behavior again now. So maybe like everything is coming back around. I just hope that this is not a trend that continues, because that's definitely something that makes me feel like really bad, dizzy. and like disoriented. Because like if there is a website, or this would be the same in an app, that if like text was scrolling horizontally, I'm trying to scroll vertically, and especially when the speed is not matched to the scrolling, then well, that's just horrible for me. That triggers lots of, well, symptoms, but also emotions, because I really hate that feeling. So yeah, there is the second one. So mismatched directions and speed. The third one Valhead mentions in the article is the distance covered. So basically, if the like if the animation is like covering lots of distance or large distance, it's worse than if it's taking if the distance is not that big. This is kind of like related to the previous two. It's a bit different, but still, like, these are all in a way aligned or like intertwined together. So that's why you might feel that, okay, like, isn't that just what you said before, something like that. So, but yeah, these are all related. So basically, the three things that Valhead lists are relative size of the movement, mismatched directions and speed, and the distance covered. And the fourth one I want to add, it's not really about triggering symptoms, but it's about distractions. So movement near content, that's really a problematic thing, and it's like it makes hard to concentrate. So if there is like constant animations, for example, even if they are really like subtle, they still like steal the attention in a way. But now that I've been talking about the problems of animations, not all animations are bad. So I just want to remind you that even though I'm like, you might think that I hate all animations, and I'm just trying to say that never use any animations. Well, that's not the case. Not all animations are bad. For example, animations can actually help to connect some things to each other, so explain relationships and stuff like that. So there are also good use cases. And one thing that Valhead found, and that's also from that article I referenced, is that non-moving properties are usually like safer from the like point of view of getting some sort of symptoms. Though, like, depending where they are, that might be a problem for like from the distraction point of view. But still, like, smaller non-moving animations are still like better. So for example, in the web, that would be maybe a hover effect or focus effect on a button or something like that. So yeah. All right. So that was basically what I wanted to say about animations and accessibility. And let's then move to the like Android specific things. And first, I am going to show you some examples. And these are from a feature that we were developing last year. So if you are our user, you might have seen our year in review. It was released in December. And if you have that, this, like what I'm showing you might be familiar to you. But for those of you who don't know, we released basically a year in review with some metrics from the previous year. So many companies are release these year in review kind of things, and we did too. And first, I will show you the version of one of the slides that we have in that year in review report, what it looks like when there is no like reduced motion setting on. So basically what most of you would see if you were using our app. So that's what I'm going to show first, and then I will show the version that I, for example, see. So, all right. It's like there is actually some movement. It's really subtle. So there is a cat that's sleeping on a pillow, and it's basically breathing. I'm gonna play it again. So you can see it's like ears moving, and its body is moving because it's breathing there. So it's like really subtle, and I really like this animation. I would love to see this one, but like if every animation was something like that, I would love it. But usually they are more like, well, there's much more movement. I'm gonna play it once again. So yeah, and this is like, I really love this, and how our creative people got this together. And we had or have like other animations as well, but this is the one that I'm going to show to you. All right, then this is basically what I see. So there is a static image with the same cat, but even though like now that I was watching the animation, and now that I'm watching the like the screenshot, I know that it should not be moving. I'm almost see, or I almost see it like the ears moving and everything. So yeah, but I can assure you this is a screenshot, so no movement there. But that's basically like, well, again, what I see. So we are like, if someone has this reduced motion or turn animations offsetting on, we are showing a screenshot. And if the setting is not on, then we are showing an animation for them. And if you want to test this feature on Android device, you can do so from settings and accessibility settings. And then the next part, it's a bit dependent on the device, but this is an example that you might find it under vision and then turn animations off. It might be, well, I don't remember like the others. This is how my phone basically displays it, but like it's definitely under accessibility settings. If, here's an if you have Android 12 or 13. So this setting is available from Android 12 onwards. So there is this thing. So if you or your users happen to have older phones, then this setting is unfortunately not available. And then a couple of more words about this setting on Android. I mentioned that, or no, that wasn't what I was about to say. Well, on Android, this setting is, in most cases, it's respected out of the box, especially if you are using animator-based animations, or if you are using Jetpack Compose version that is at least 1.2.0. So in these cases, the setting is, or at least should be, respected. It's always possible that there are some bugs or something like that. So that's why I would say test still. But like in these cases, you should be covered. But then there are other cases when you should actually check if this setting is enabled. And I'm going to soon show you the code how to do that. But first, let's talk about the cases when you should check that. Well, if you are using Compose version that's smaller than 1.2.0, then you should definitely check it because it's not respected out of the box. And then there are some weird cases. I don't know like why the setting is not respected, because I like from our code base, I found some things or places where this wasn't actually respected. I fixed it because I knew how to do that, and I also it was easy for me to find that place because, well, usually I don't see any animations. So when I saw some animations, I knew that something is wrong there. Then I fixed it, but I'm still to the date, I don't know why it wasn't respected, even though it should have been. So that's why, when I said that it mentioned the cases when this setting is respected, I mentioned that you should test because there might be some cases. And then one thing when you should, or you maybe should check if this setting is respected, is if you are using Lottie or other, other similar libraries as well, if you are using those. Because at least with Lottie, it actually respects this setting automatically. But there is a but. It usually displays the first frame of the animation as a placeholder if this setting is on. And it might be okay. In the case I showed the demo of the cat sleeping. In that case, it would have been just fine because the first frame is, well, the cat is visible. But for example, we have in the same report, we have this animation of a dolphin swimming. And with that one, when I first saw that one, I had the setting on before we implemented the check for that one. Well, the frame was basically empty because the dolphin is underwater in the first frame. So that's why it's really good to test if you need to display something else than the first frame of the animation for those of us who are using the reduced motion or animations off setting. So yeah, that's basically it about when it's respected and when you should check. And I know that I'm repeating myself, but the key is to test. So just turn the setting on and test your app, and then you will see where you maybe should implement that check or where some things are maybe a bit funny, and then you probably should do something about it. All right. I've been talking about a lot of different things and why you should check or do the check or something like that. And finally, now I'm gonna show you the code. And here it is. We are going to talk more about it piece by piece. So yeah, first part of this code is the one where we are actually reading the value from the settings. Because on Android, there are accessibility service and for many things, you can actually query, the settings or the values of the settings pretty easily. So for example, getting the information if a screen reader is on, it's pretty straightforward. But with the reduced motion, it's not that simple because there is no is reduced motion enabled or animations turned off or something like that. There is no such checks. But when the this setting is actually turned on, the animator duration scale setting or the value in global settings is set to 0. So basically what we want to do is to get the value of this settings.global.animator duration scale. But it's not always set to anything. There are cases when it's undefined or it's non-existent, basically. So we need to do something about that. So it's not just checking that, okay, if this one is 0. So we need to actually try to query that value. And if the setting is not found, we need to set the value to like basically anything else than 0. So in this one, I'm defining a variable animation duration, and I'm trying to get that animator duration scale value. And if the setting is not found, then I'm setting it to 1. All right. Then actually the whole function to check if the reduced motion is enabled. Well, we first try to get the value, or we get the animation duration value, and then on the line 10, we just check if this animation duration is 0. If it's 0, then reduced motion or animations off setting is enabled. And well, if it's not, then it's not enabled. This might also mean that it's not like implemented. So when if a user is using, let's say, Android version 11, so like they don't have the setting, then it would be basically that one. This function would return false in those cases. So yeah, that's basically it with like how you can check if the setting is on. And by the way, I don't remember if I said it already, but if you are wondering why I'm talking about reduced motion and animations, turn animations off, and I think like in most of the Android settings, it's turn animations off. But then again, I'm talking a lot about reduced motion. That's basically because I come from the web world, and I've learned about this first in the web world, and actually on iOS too, it's reduced motion and not animations off. So that's why the small confusion here. So yeah. All right, we are coming to the end of the talk, and I have basically 1 plus 3 key takeaways from this talk that I hope that you will remember. So I'm gonna start with that one, or I could have said that 3 plus 1, but I'm gonna start with that +1. Never use parallax scrolling. Like if you don't remember anything else from this talk, and that's the only thing you remember, and you will never ever implement parallax scrolling, I'm still happy. I'm actually really happy. But if you remember other things as well, then remember that not everyone enjoys animations, because they can actually be distracting, or they might cause symptoms or trigger symptoms like nausea, dizziness, strokes, migraine, and other possible symptoms. And we who suffer from these or might get these symptoms, we often use this operating system level setting to turn the animations off, and that's like called either reduced motion or turn animations off. And please respect it. And in Android, this setting is often respected, but not always. So test. That's like a good thing with basically anything, test. So yeah, all right. So thank you. My name is Eeva-Jonna Panula, and you can find me from Mastodon. I'm at Eevis at mas2, so EEVIS at MAS.to. I'm trying to get active there, but I'm pretty new there, so like yeah, still learning with that one. And basically, if you want to contact me in any other ways, you can find my contact info from my website, which is eevis.codes, so eevis.codes, and my blog is at eevis.codes/blog. So yeah, thank you.
Wow, thank you so much for that amazing talk. And I liked your key takeaways, because one thing that you mentioned that really resonated with me, and now I feel like, oh my God, I have to be conscious about, because I'm also an Android engineer, is not everyone enjoys animations. That is so important, because I've never thought of it like that. We are always like our designers, like, we need this animation, we need this animation. But you're right. Maybe we need to advocate for, is it actually necessary to have this animation?
Yeah, I definitely agree.
Yeah. I also want to mention I loved when you mentioned the movement near the content. I actually don't like that too. That one, I don't like it myself. We did not get any questions. I just wanted to say thank you very much. But I did have a question from me, and I just wanted to ask you. I'm a bit curious because you mentioned you work for Aura, and I wanted to just see how we can tie it back. And I wanted to ask you, what is the OS that Aura is using, if that relates to your talk? Like the operating system, how is it working? Or maybe you're not allowed to say it, it's okay too.
You mean like the ring, or like, sorry, I just not
Yes,
sure
yes,
if I
yes.
understood what.
Yeah, the ring, right?
Uh,
Like, yeah, I was curious about what operating system it's using.
yeah, unfortunately, I'm not like that's not a thing that I will talk. So
Oh, okay,
sorry.
cool, cool. Cool. And uh, I think that's it because I was more intrigued, like, wow, is it using Kotlin? That was what was running in my mind. But thank you so much for a great talk. And I think you can share with us the slides and then we will. I think I see another question. Let me read it for you. How do I check if a particular animation on an app is accessible enough? Do Google accessibility support this?
I would say that turn or set the animations, the sorry, reduced and turn animations off setting on, and I'm just gonna just a sec. My slides are still visible, so I'm gonna just go back to the this one. So like turn the settings on and check it. So like okay, this is basically like if the setting is working, or there is no animations for example me. So for that, just test with the turn animations off setting. So that's a like the first thing. But then like for because yeah, not everyone uses this setting or can use this setting because of, for example, having an older phone. Then that is a really good question, and I'd love to say less is more, and also um, smaller is better. um, there are no like real ways of checking if something is accessible, or like tools for that, and I don't want to say that like test with people who
Yeah.
don't want to see animations, so because that might actually, like, if the animation is not accessible, that might lead into some really like
Hmm.
not so pleasant situations. So there is that. But maybe I'd say the test with this animations offsetting, and then like don't implement too big, or like too flashy, or like too large animations. So that's what
Cool.
I'm trying to answer here.
Nice. Yeah, yeah, yeah. I think that's a very good question too. I do agree. And it kind of like sounds tricky too because even I think even right now we are also trying to get to a point where our own application, even without animations, can be accessible enough. So yeah, you're right about that. It's still very challenging, but I think we're walking toward the right direction, and there's a lot of push now for all application now to be accessible. In fact, there are lawsuits if your application is not accessible for big companies. Thank you so much again for being here with us. I think that was it. We are right on time. And stick around for another. We have another great session coming up at around 11:30. I'll see you there, all of you. Bye.